I'm so honored to be here, and I am so, I am blessed by the Lord. He has, He has been far too kind to me in my life. I am a man that, quite honestly, spent most of my life in arrogance and ignorance, and by the time I was 30, I was a raging alcoholic and an angry man, and completely lost. And I had tried to do it myself the whole time, and I didn't really know the Lord. I thought I knew the Lord, because I went to church for 45 minutes a week. And I mean on Christmas and Easter, when I say every week. And I didn't know the Lord. And when I lost my family and I was losing my job and lost all of my friends, I knew that everything that I was doing was wrong. I didn't know what was right, but I knew that everything that I was doing was wrong. And I was living, this is 1995, I think, and I was trying to sober up and not doing a good job. But I wasn't drinking, but I wasn't sober. And I was living in an apartment that was $695 a month, and I couldn't afford my rent. And it came to Christmas time, and my daughter, who was at the time very young, we were in a CVS, and all she wanted for Christmas was a little Christmas ornament that was from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And I never felt like a bigger loser in my life because I couldn't afford the Christmas ornament for my daughter. And that Christmas, I was by myself I was living in this apartment that I was the only one that spoke English in the entire apartment complex. I used to call it the United Nations. But I was living in this apartment, and my wife and children were together, and I was alone. And I knew I deserved to be alone, and it was all my fault. And I was down on my olive green shag carpeting that kind of strangely smelled like soup. And I was down on my knees, and I was writing my journal. And I was feeling sorry for myself. My mother, when I was young, killed herself. She was an alcoholic and drug addict. And at that moment, I was about to repeat my mother's life. And I knew that was wrong, but I didn't know how to live. And I was afraid of dying. And so it was at that moment that I made the pact with myself at the time to find the answer. I didn't want to die. I wanted to live, but not live the way I was. And so I got back up, and I wish I could say that it was the next morning, sunshine, and little birds came in and spoke to me and sat on my finger, and it was happy. But I was still miserable, but at least I was determined to go on. 2 years passed, and I was still struggling. And I had decided to find some answers, so I decided to go back to school. I was self-educated, undereducated. I only had a high school diploma. I'm 32 years old at the time, and I decided to go to school, but I could only afford one class. I was accepted at Yale, but I could only afford one class, so I had to choose carefully. And I chose to take early Christology. Because if you're looking for answers, spiritual answers, the place you go to, of course, is the university. and after that one class, I absolutely believed in God, but man had no idea who he was. And every answer that they gave me made absolutely no sense to me. But I believed in him. And I was reading a letter from Thomas Jefferson to his nephew, Peter Carr. Peter Carr was 16 years old. His mother had died. His father was just about to pass away. And before he passed away, he said, Thomas, will you please educate my son? You're the smartest man I know. And so he did. He wrote him a letter when he was 16. And he said, in mathematics, you need to know these things. In literature, you have to know these things. The last subject line was God. And he said, when it comes to religion, above all things, fix reason firmly in her seat, and question with boldness even the very existence of God. For if there be a God, he must surely rather honest questioning over blindfolded fear. Wow. That changed my life. Because I had grown up where everything was a mystery and you couldn't ask questions. You just had to obey in blind obedience. So that day I decided that there was nothing that I believed that I actually knew myself. There was nothing that I had actually found myself. I had believed someone else. And so I didn't have a personal relationship at all. As time goes on and I am questioning and I'm reading everything, I had this library of a serial killer because I would go into the Barnes & Noble and I would say, who disagrees with each other? Okay, I'll read Billy Graham and Carl Sagan. I'll read Alan Dershowitz and Adolf Hitler. I read everything, but I put my own counsel together to see, because my father had taught me, if there's truth, if it ever intersects where people disagree, if it ever intersects, that's the point where you know it's true. That one thing you know is true. And so I was looking for a counsel, and I swear to you, I could have been arrested just for the library that I had because it looked like I was psychotic. I will never forget. I was standing at the Barnes & Noble, and they were like, oh, that's a good book. Boop. Oh, that's boop. That's okay. Boop. That's security. So I'm still looking, and I'm searching hard. And I pray to God. It's a Thursday. And I pray to God, and I said, Lord, I need help. I can't make it anymore. I can't search for you any longer and stay sober. I need help. Please, relief. I need help, please. I was still searching on my own. A couple days go by and I'm on my knees praying to him. And I said, I need a roadblock, Lord. Please, I need a roadblock. And now I'm starting, because I think I'm an Israelite because Israel means to wrestle with God. And he usually pins me down on the mat, but I'm still wrestling with him. And at this point, I'm one of his more impertinent children. And so I said to him, Lord, I need your help, and I need a roadblock. And you know what? If you don't give me a roadblock, next Thursday I'm going and I'm going to go drink, and it'll be your fault because I'm giving you a whole week, and I'll be looking for it. Well, that day I'm talking in a parking lot of our radio station, and this woman walks up. And she walks past me, and she turns around, she comes back. She said, "Are you Glenn Beck?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "I've listened to you for years." She said, "I just want to thank you for the laughs. You're very funny." And I said, "Thank you." And she turned around and walked away. A couple of days later, this woman was there because she had won something. Her sister and her were playing a contest, and they had won something and registered to win a car. And so that Saturday, we were giving away the car. And because I lived in the New York area and I was miserable, I decided to give the car away by, if I pull your number, you lose. And so I keep pulling numbers until really everybody is a loser except one. And I get about halfway through. I mean, that's how sick and demented I was at that time. "Yeah, you're a loser like me, okay? How do you feel now?" So about halfway through, I picked out this number, and this woman comes up to me, and she said, as a loser, she said, "Thank you very much. That was very nice. Thank you." And she walked away, and I'm like, what is that? And she was so nice. And I said, "Oh, wait, stop for just a second." I said, "What's your name?" And she said, "Tanya." And she looked at me like, "You loser, I just met you 2 days ago in a parking lot." And I said, "Everybody, you got to meet Tanya. She just thanked me for losing. That's how everybody here should behave. Look how nice she is." And she just blushed, and she was like, "Okay, that was a bad experience," and walked away. Thursday, that was Saturday. Thursday, I'm in my beat-up piece of crap car, and I'm driving to the bar, and I'm arguing with the Lord. "I told you. Oh, I told you. I'm driving. Yeah, that's right. I am going to the bar. Because I gave you a week and you gave me nothing. All I asked was for a roadblock. You didn't give me one, so it's not my fault. I am going up and I'm saying, 'Mr. Bartender, Jack and Coke, and then you can watch me drink it.'" And I walked in, and I walked up to the bar, and I ordered a Jack and Coke, and he slid it across the bar to me, and I grabbed it, and I turned around, and at the other end of the room was Tanya. And I realized the Lord had given me a roadblock the day I asked for it. And I put my drink down. And we haven't been apart a day since. The Lord is good. The Lord is good. And He is merciful, and we don't usually deserve it at all. You can't earn His mercy. You can't earn anything from Him. It is far too great of a price for us to ever pay. So I'm with her and miserable. And I'm a black hole I'm just so full of sin and all of the things that I had done in my life. I'm just a black hole. And I'm standing in my kitchen one day, and I'm holding her like this. She's facing that way, and I'm holding her like this. And I can feel the goodness coming off of her, and I could just feel it just bending into me. And I feel guilty. And I said to her, I just whispered in her ear, and I said, "I have to tell you, I'm stealing light from you." And without hesitation, without turning, nothing, she just says, "You cannot steal that which you are being given." I was like, I have got to marry this girl. And so I asked her, and she said, no. And I'm like, but you can have all this whenever you want it. I mean, ladies, right? I mean, chicks dig me. But, so, all my children are making gagging. Like, and my wife is doing that a little bit too, but so I said, why? And she said, because we don't have God in common. And I said, no, I believe in God. And she's like, uh-huh. And I said, no, I believe in God. I just don't know. I can't find anything that makes any sense. She said, and I said, and you ask the kids. We talk about God all the time. And she's like, uh-huh. So I decided I'm going to prove her wrong. So I invite her to come with us to dinner on Saturday night. And I come with a notepad and a paper and a pen. And I say to my kids, so kids. And I look at her like, sit back and watch a master. I'm like, so kids, tell me who we are as a family. What is important to us? And they looked at me like, what? And I said, well, I mean, what's important to us? Who are we? They said, well, we're happy. I'm like, okay, not the answer I'm looking for, but yeah, okay, I got it. We're happy. Good. But I mean, like, what's really important to us? Who are we really? Well, we're colorful. Okay, no, this is going directly in the opposite direction. I don't even know what colorful means. The third one was artsy. Now I'm starting to be a little offended by this. I think they came up with, like, number 8 was like happiful. I'm like, no, kids. I mean, like, what's really important to us? I mean, like, you know what? If you would say we are really all about as a family, what would that be, kids? Number 11, my daughter said, oh, we're nonviolent. So my wife was right. Tanya was right, and we had to get to a church at emergency speeds. And so we started our church tour. And we went to everything. I mean, we went to everything. We went to a synagogue one Saturday, which was great. I didn't understand a word of the service, but it was great. And I thought it was nice because it's Saturday morning, you're in, got the whole weekend. That's kind of nice. We went to a church where there was an atheist as the preacher. We were sitting and listening in the sermon, and in the middle of the sermon, he said, now, y'all know that I don't believe in God. And Tanya and I were like, I didn't know that. Did you know that? Because we didn't know that. You should probably have that on a big sign outside. Our preacher doesn't believe in God. You guys thought I ended up in a weird church. No, I've seen weird churches. Long story short, I ended up in the waters of baptism. And I stood in the waters of baptism, and for the first time, I really heard about the atonement and the atoning powers of accepting Jesus Christ. I was standing in a meeting, because believe me, I didn't want to be a Mormon. Nobody wants to be a Mormon. Do you want to be a Mormon? Nobody wants to be a Mormon. I don't want to be a Mormon. It's hard. It sucks. You're unpopular. It's just, but it's where we found truth. And so we went there, and I was standing in a Sunday school class, and one of the brothers said, so let's talk about the concept of Zion. The concept where we all just get along, where there is no racism, there is no strife, where we help each other, where we work together, where we hold each other up, where we comfort the sick, where we mourn with those who are mourning. Now, how do we do that, brethren? And all these people were, answering all kinds of stuff. I had no answer. And finally, he looks at me. Now, this is the man who I had dubbed the amazing Mr. Plastic Man, because he and his plastic family were so happy to see me and loved me the very first time we ever met. You know those kind of Christians who are like, I love you so much. Brother, I love you. Thanks for coming. Oh, we're so happy. And you're like, get off me. I don't know. Give me 10 minutes. You'll hate my guts. What? So I had deemed him the amazing Mr. Plastic Man because I thought he was completely phony. But he was the man teaching the class that day. And he said, how do we make this happen? And with tears running down his cheeks, he said, brothers, there's only one way. And that is, if I find a way to shed all of the stuff that blocks my heart, and I love you, and you love me, and I love you, and you love me, and I love you, and you, and you, and you love me. We may not know each other. We may not even like each other, but we love one another. I have to tell you, I sat there crying, listening to that man, and I thought, I don't care if I have to drink chicken blood, if that's what gets me that. If I can be that man, if I can be a man who truly loves people, I will do whatever the Lord commands me to do. And I got into the waters of baptism, and I was standing there in the name of Jesus Christ, being baptized, and I stood there, and in my head, still that impertinent child to the Lord, saying to him in my head, you promised me. I have read your words. You promised me right now that if I do what you tell me to do, no matter how uncomfortable I am, no matter what it is, no matter how much I don't want to do it, if I follow your footsteps and I follow your words and I put your words above everything else in my life, and I transform, I become the man you destined me to become, you will take all of my sins away, all the things that make me turn the radio on when I'm in the car and turn it up so I can't hear my own thoughts. You take all those things away from me that keep me up in the middle of the night, tossing and turning, and say, geez, you were so stupid. Why did you do that? You promise me you will take those away from me if I just do it. And this is something I said, and I do not recommend you ever say this. But as I was in the water, I said to him, I want you to know, if you break your word, you cease to be God. Because I know God has to speak truth all the time. And if you break your word on this, you're not God. You cease to be God. So let me tell you something, God. I want you to know I'm not going to be the one that breaks this covenant. Don't say that to him. Not a good idea. But I am telling you, I went from a man who was miserable, who used to lay on my floor twice a week. My wife will tell you. Twice a week I'd be in the bathroom because it was the only room that I could close off in my apartment that could be completely dark, and press my head against the cold tile because I had migraines so bad. Twice a week I would lay down on the floor. I was a guy who could not find a job. I tried to find a job for 2 years. No one would hire me. I was miserable. The very next day, I haven't had a migraine since. I found an agent called me. I was baptized on a Sunday. An agent called me on Monday. My sins, I don't lay awake at night anymore. I don't have any of those problems anymore. He keeps his word. Our God is a powerful God who keeps his word. The problem is us. That's the problem. I was starting to do my job. I got into talk radio right after I was baptized. And I was starting to do my job. And everybody hated me. Okay, you didn't really need to rejoice in that. I'll be patient in that tribulation there. So everybody hated me. I was horrible at it. And when I got there, we went from 9th place in my first ratings period, and we rocketed all the way to 18th place. And yet, somehow I could feel something was coming. I knew something was coming. And I told Tanya, I said, something's coming. I said to her, I'm a pretty big dreamer, but honey, the Lord is telling me that something big is coming, and it's going to be beyond our wildest expectations. And she said, yeah, right. She thought I was going to be a garbage man, but I don't think the garbage union would have let me in. But so that's what I was feeling. But at the same time he gave me that promise, he said this to me. In my prayers, he said, I want you to write a letter to the church, and I want you to tell them that you'll work in the PR department. And I want you to leave all this and go to work for a church. And I'm like, ooh, no. And I'm thinking to myself, as we all do, that's me. I'm just making that up. I didn't hear that. Because God wouldn't tell me to do that. Because I got all this talent, you see. And I can do big, big things because something's coming right around the corner. So that's just me thinking that's silly. I don't even need to talk to my wife because I know exactly what she's going to say. And I go for about 3 days. And every time I pray, that's all I hear. Give it all up. Send a letter. Work in the PR department. And I'm just seeing this horrible cubicle of death with me just writing out newsletters going, I'm so happy, Lord. I'm just so happy now. And I get home and I said to Tanya, I said, okay, so let me tell you what the Lord said. This is funny. He said, this is what I'm thinking. I mean, he didn't really say this. He said that I should write a letter and go to work for the PR department at the church. And she stopped. She was in the kitchen. She stopped. And she looked at me and she said, please tell me you've written that letter. And I'm like, no, that's crazy, right? She said, did we not make a covenant with God that we would do exactly what he said? Yes. I think you meant everything he said. I wrote the letter, and I actually had to drive it to a mailbox because I was afraid if I put it in my own mailbox, I would get up in the middle of the night and go like, I put it in the mailbox. I don't know what happened to it. So I drove it to the mailbox, and I put it in, and the minute I let go of the handle, and I could no longer get that letter back, I was overwhelmed with the Spirit. It is about me this time and not about you. Buckle up. Here we go. And from that moment, everything went like this. And I have nothing to do with it except the mistakes. The mistakes are all mine. Are all mine. And I have begged the Lord for forgiveness. When I left Fox, people didn't understand. People don't understand. I read his words. When I read Ezekiel, and it talks about a watchman on the tower, that's all of us. We're all watchmen. But if you have a footprint of, at Fox I had a footprint of 30 million people a week. Now through all of the things we do, it's 50 million people. Let me rephrase that. It's 50 million souls that if I see something and I don't say it, it's on me, not them. And I have tried my best, and I have failed in many occasions. But those are my mistakes. I'm trying to do what the Lord is asking me to do. 5 years ago, when we stood in Washington, D.C. at the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, and I began to speak there and ask people to come gather together, the Lord was very clear to me afterwards. There is something coming, and there is trouble that is coming, and we need to bind ourselves up together. We need to stand and be in uncomfortable places. We need to get out of our comfort zone. We need to stand with people who most likely sometimes hate us, or they think they hate. And we have to break down the walls and start coming together. And that's Jew and Christian. That's believers and even non-believers. If they just have principles that we can stand and unite on some principles. We need to stand with people no matter what their faith is, if you believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Because the Lord is, I recognized this when my kids were littler and arguing, and they would go upstairs, and I'd tell them to brush their teeth and put on their pajamas and get ready for bed. And they would be upstairs arguing, and then I would come upstairs, and they would say, she did this, and he started this. And I don't know about you, but I don't really care. I give them the warning, guys, I'm coming up the stairs in a few minutes. I'm coming up. Have you brushed your teeth? Do you have your pajamas on? And then they'll be quiet for a while, and I'll be in the kitchen. I'll still hear them arguing back and forth. And then I come up with a little stronger voice. Kids, knock it off. I'm coming upstairs. Do you have your stuff done? Gets quiet for a while. And then I hear them arguing again. Then I start coming up the stairs. Kids, I'm coming up the stairs. You better have your teeth brushed and your pajamas on, and you better be in bed when I get to your room, because I'm coming. And I'm telling you, that is what God is saying right now to each of us. And he doesn't care what the Methodists are doing, or what the Baptists are doing, or what the Catholics are doing, or what the Mormons are doing. He only cares about what you're doing. Did you do what he told you to do? That's it. We're going to be a people that will change the world. And let me testify about your bishop. I feel like this is some sort of a magic show where you're like, do I know you? Have I ever met you before, sir? But God's the greatest magician. It's not magic, it's miracles. It's the Holy Spirit. And I tell you, I didn't know him from Adam. In fact, is JP here? Did JP stand as Penn and Teller might do? Sir, can you tell me? This is JP. He works for me. He has massive spiritual radar as well. And I'm giving this speech in my movie studios, and the bishop is sitting there, and I walk off the stage, and I walk right up to JP, and what did I say to you, JP?
You said, there's a man in the front row, or in those first rows, I have to talk to him. The Spirit is telling me that I have to talk to him.
Okay, and he said to me, spiritual radar, a black guy? And I said, why, did you feel it too? And he said, oh my gosh, the Spirit is screaming at us, talk to him. Okay, right? So we walk up to him. I know what God is telling me to do, but I don't know who he is at all. I didn't know he was a bishop. I knew nothing about him. And I walked up to him and I said, Lord's telling me I need to talk to you. What do we have to talk about? And he said, well, I don't really know. He said, I'm a pastor of a church. And he said, I did hear you talking to churches, and I don't know. And I said, you know what? I am talking about. Maybe I should come to your church. And he's like, and I could see him going, oh, dear God, maybe, no, this might. I could hear Pat, and I could see Pat in his eyes like, oh, dear God, how am I going to tell my wife? How am I going to tell my congregation this is a bad idea? Everything I think turned into slow motion. He's like, no. We talked for a few minutes, and I said, inviting me to your church, that'd probably be wildly unpopular. And he said, yeah, probably so. And we're brothers from another mother. We both kind of looked at each other and went, let's do it. Yes, we do have the same Father. We do have the same Father. Look, I've met with some of our Native American friends. I was down at the Navajo Nation, and we were serving them, and they said they could just see it. That people had come and served them before, and it's like, beat it. And I talked to them and said, look, we're all a part of this. We are all part of this land, and we need to atone for the things that we have done. And while I really truly believe with the Civil War, we were washed clean of slavery, but we were not washed clean of everything that happened the day after the Emancipation Proclamation. Reconstruction and everything that has happened since then is monstrous. And people like me, we just go along our way, yep, well, why don't you guys get over it? Because it's awful. And even if you could get over it, somebody needs to say, not in human terms, but in spiritual terms, have we atoned as a nation? Because God doesn't get over that until we say, Lord, with a broken and contrite spirit, until we get down on our knees and say, Lord, please forgive us. Please heal us. We have to turn to him, and he will heal us and heal our land. But we are turned the wrong direction. We're going in opposite direction. We are being used by both parties, by anybody who wants power or wants money. We have to stop serving the God of Washington, stop serving the God of corporate America, stop serving the God of money, stop serving the God of sex, stop serving the God of entertainment, and start serving the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and he will heal us. The Lord is giving us a great opportunity. He is, when I first spanked my son, and he's the only child that maybe my daughter's gotten one spanking, but I've only spanked my son once because he's a little stallion. And he came out like this. And when he was 5, it was the first, I have 4 children, he's the third in line. When he was 5, I had to spank him for reasons that are mind-boggling, but I'm over it, what? And I turned him over my knee, and I'm crying. I for the first time, I understood what my father said when he's like, this is gonna hurt me more than it hurts you. You're like, yeah, right, Dad. It does, it breaks your heart. Breaks your heart. And I spanked him, and he got up and he went, 5. That's the best you got? Oh. That one came out sideways. I don't know why I was telling you the spanking of my son story here. I'm a little like you. Where was I going? What was I saying before? Yeah, oh yeah, Thank you. I'm not as good as he is. This guy, I think he is riddled with ADD. Your bishop is just riddled with ADD, but he's just.
I know why you said that. I know why you said that, don't you?
The shoe fits. I have to tell you real quick, he said this morning when we walked out, he said, I'm not gonna say anything. I'm just doing a quick introduction of you, and then I'm not gonna say anything. I'm sitting there going, that's the longest nothing I've ever heard. Now, where the hell was I again? What was it? God's getting ready to spank us. Yes. So here's the thing. God is just like us. He's our dad, and he's just like us. He's not punishing us. It's gonna hurt him more than it hurts us, even though we're not gonna feel it. But he's begging us the whole time, please, please. I can't imagine the tears that he has had, begging us, please, children, please. It doesn't have to be this hard. You don't have to go through all of this. Just please, drop your hatred, drop what you're doing right now, and turn back to me, please. And you can tell that he is a loving God because he has not swept us all off this planet into the sea. There hasn't been a little hole in space that has sucked all of us out into space yet. But I'm telling you, it's coming. When the Lord gives us the opportunity to see the babies in the Petri dish, and that's a blessing from him. He's allowed us to have technology and people who are strong enough and smart enough to go in there with hidden microphones and show us that monstrosity. Now, what he's saying to you and me is, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to do anything? Please, children, please see what you've allowed to happen. See what you have done. Stop it. Stop it now. They're killing my other children. Stop it. When he allows us in the arrogance of evil and ISIS, I brought all these things to show you, and I'm not going to use any of them except maybe one, and it's not even here. Here it is. This is a Quran from 1803, okay? Our first foreign war was on the Barbary pirates. The Barbary pirates were Muslims that were beheading. I mean, all this, you know, the Marines are called leathernecks. Do you know why they're called leathernecks? Because they went over to the Barbary coast and they needed to put leather up here so when somebody tried to behead them, it would stop. This was our first foreign war. And Thomas Jefferson asked, what the heck are we doing? What was it, David? 25% of our national debt or our budget? 20% of our national budget went to bribes to pay off the Muslim Barbary pirates. 20% of our federal budget. When Thomas Jefferson got in, he's like, this is ridiculous. What do they want? He went and he got his Quran and he read it. And he said, dear God, they just want to kill us. They just want to kill us because their God tells them that if you don't agree with Allah, if you don't accept it, then you either pay a tax, a bribe. 20% of our federal budget was going to that. We either pay that tax or they enslave our women, rape our women, and kill us. That's when we started the Marines, the leathernecks, and that's when they went over. And when it was over, he said, everybody in America should read this book because they're never going to stop. They might go away for a while, but they will never ever stop. And if you don't pay attention, if you don't stay alert and we don't stay close to God, then they will come back and they will kill us. And that's why in this Quran, there is a warning to the reader. And it says, the Quran was a well-read book in America because at that time, before we went to war with people, we actually thought it out. We actually tried to figure out who it was, what we were doing. And so we read the Quran. Notice it's not taken out of context. It's not little pieces of it. It's the whole thing. And it says in here, read it. You won't believe the absurdities that a good portion of the world actually believes. And you will understand the danger to us. We forgot. We bury our own history. We don't even know who the good guys and the bad guys are anymore. And every time we do it, let me show you this. Do I have time, Bishop?
You only here.
Everybody knows. Look, what do your scriptures look like? What do your scriptures look like? You can open up my scriptures. My scriptures are all written in and everything else. That's a story of who you are. It can tell you, I can tell if somebody is BSing me just by the rub marks on their scriptures, okay? And I know because I'm a guy who had no rub marks on my scriptures for a long time. So you know, that's a mark of who you are, no matter what the book is. This is Mein Kampf. This is a copy, this is a special edition given to von Stauffenberg. He was a general in for the Nazis. This was a special edition given to him by Adolf Hitler. Now, von Stauffenberg was the guy, if you ever saw the movie with Tom Cruise, Valkyrie, he's the Tom Cruise character. He wasn't a Nazi. He tried to kill Hitler. He tried to kill him. You could have picked up his copy of Mein Kampf. There's not a page turned. There's not a mark in it. The guy wasn't a Nazi. His book tells the story of who he is, what he believed. What does your book look like? What does America's book look like? Most of us, we have been given the gift of being able to have access to the books, all of our books, and we don't care. We don't even read it. This is a copy of the Tyndale Bible. Every page was smuggled in. Every page was a death sentence. Every page. You were caught with a page of this Bible, you were executed. You were burned at the stake because it was in English. Because William Tyndale said, you should be able to read the scriptures in your own tongue, in your own home. You shouldn't have to go to an expert. You should know it. They died to give us this book in our language, and what do we do with it? We claim that we're not a Christian country. We're a Christian country. The first thing we did as a nation after we won the war, what was the one thing that we could not do in America? One thing we could not do. Under the king, we could not print the Bible. Couldn't print it because the king knew the power of the Bible. So we couldn't print it. Had to have the king's version. This is called the Aiken Bible. There's 7 copies of this, and I think there's like 3 in the Smithsonian. This is the Bible that once we established our nation, this Bible was printed. First thing they did, print the Bible. When it was handed to George Washington, he wept over it, and he said, finally, a gift that is worthy for the men that I served with. Now, how many of us would get a Bible and go, oh, thank you, that's very nice. These people wept when they were given a Bible. We are off course. We are off track. And we can't be ashamed of our faith, no matter what it is. We can't be afraid. I'm a guy who's been on the radio for a long time. I was told at a network, and I've only worked at 2, so you decide, but be careful, it might be surprising which the answer is. I worked at 2 networks. I knew it was time for me to leave when I was told by the network brass, don't say God anymore. 3 months, I said in that meeting, okay. 3 months later, I was called into the office, and they said, do you remember that conversation? I said, yes, I do. Do you realize how many times you've said that word since we had that conversation? And I looked at that person, I said, you've counted? Yes, 83 times. Wow. And I said, not bad. We have to be able to talk to each other. We have to be able, we're not that different from one another. I mean, I know it looked like I was wildly different from you yesterday, but I think that's only because I wasn't wearing the robes. It wasn't because I was, no, it was, I hear my own drummer. But those aren't the things that make us the same anyway. Those are the things that make the world go around. We're all different. We should celebrate our differences and celebrate diversity. Diversity makes us stronger. When we've all seen the arrows put together in our national seal, all the arrows put together and bound together. That actually came from an Indian chief talking to, I think it was Benjamin Franklin. And they were looking for answers. The Indian chief took one arrow, broke it. It's easy to break. Then he took a whole bunch of them, put them together. Go ahead, Ben, try to break them. What he was saying was, y'all need to get together. When we get together, we're unbeatable. We're unstoppable. There's going to be times for us to argue. We have a lot to atone for, and that's hard work, and we have to do that. We have to have the tough, honest conversations. We have to question with boldness even the very existence of God. But God would much rather have us ask honest questions than sit around in blindfolded fear. I'm not afraid of you, don't be afraid of me. We can't be afraid of each other. We can't demonize one another. We have to listen to one another. Come together, stand together, or one by one, I swear to you, one by one, Satan's going to break us, each one of us. One right after another. He'll take the weakest churches and he'll break them and snap them in half. And by the time it catches up to the strongest churches, there ain't going to be nobody to stand with you, and he'll snap you just as fast. Let's stand together. Let me just end with this. Thank you. Thank you so much. Pat, you have been so gracious and so kind. And Bishop, you are truly a remarkable man. This man is truly a remarkable man. I want to thank you for standing, for allowing us to come here, allowing us to come and just be interlopers in your town and in your church. And I want to thank you for your hospitality. I tell you, Tanya and I talked about it yesterday. There's no more aptly named church that I've ever been in next to this. Nothing. You are truly a guiding light, and we thank you. Thank you. God bless you.